Where does your favorite NFL team rank entering the NFL draft? Welcome, football fans. It's been a minute since I ranked every NFL team. Pretty much a month. So in this video, I will rank how I feel about all 32 NFL teams. From the worst, number 32, to the best, the number one team in the NFL, entering the NFL draft. Gronk, spike the like button if you're with me. Don't be a jabroni, and subscribe. And of course, let me know in the comments, who is too high, who is too low, and who is just right. Let's get to it. Beginning with the worst team in the NFL entering the 2025 NFL Draft, and that, in my opinion, is a new entry at 32. The New Orleans Saints. Yup, this team is falling apart. Derek Carr and his, let's call it, uncertain future is the biggest reason why the Saints are 32. If I'm assuming that entering the draft, the Saints will be starting Spencer Rattler at quarterback, I think they're the worst team in the league. They also lose a borderline Hall of Fame player, Ryan Ramczyk, to retirement. Some of their best leaders are getting older than dirt. Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, Alvin Kamara. The list goes on. This is a new coaching staff led by a suspect head coach, in my opinion, Kellen Moore. I think he will be and go on to be a better coordinator than a head coach. I just don't see how he fits it from a personality and aura standpoint. I don't think he's a leader of men at that level. Their defense is extremely suspect at corner and in the secondary. In the draft, they could help themselves by maybe getting a quarterback, potentially improving the offensive line and the secondary. But I don't see this team doing anything this year. I think they're in big trouble. That's why I have them at number 32. At number 31, the New York Jets. I think the Jets are going to be the worst team in the AFC this year. That is my prediction. Justin Fields is probably the 31st or 32nd best quarterback in terms of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. He's going to be near the bottom of the list, right? He can't effectively process a defense. He can't consistently throw the ball accurately. And that's not a good recipe for an NFL quarterback. Sure, he's very athletic and he looks really cool on the field. Jets fans will buy in. But trust me, once you see him play from behind in a game, or you see him under pressure and hold on to the ball too long, you'll quickly escape the Justin Fields hype train. Trust me. The offensive line is not bad. Right tackle is needed in the draft. They do have Garrett Wilson and two really good running backs led by Breece Hall. But they do really badly need a tight end and a wide receiver too. Their weaponry just suggests that they don't have a lot of depth. Defensively, they're solid, but I don't think they're fantastic. They lost DJ Reed. They lost CJ Mosley. Some pretty impactful recent players for this defense. And I look at this coaching staff, and I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Glenn. I don't like how he handled Aaron Rodgers, and I'm really not a fan of his defense. I think that it's overly aggressive for no reason. I think he plays man coverage and only man coverage despite the personnel. And sure, maybe you can get away with that with Sauce Gardner, but I think the secondary is not as good without DJ Reed. I think the safeties are suspect, and I think the D-line is good but not great. And I just overall look at a team that I think is going to have a good but not great defense led by a scheme change that I'm not sure is really going to work out in its favor. And offensively, it's going to be one of the bottom 5 offenses in football. I just don't know how they win games. Now, in the draft, right tackle, tight end, safety, maybe even corner, right? They can address a number of areas, wide receiver. but I don't think it's really going to push the buttons because they don't have a quarterback right now. So that's why they're at number 31. At number 30, I have the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is before the draft, so I want to see how the Titans actually perform here. I'm assuming Cam Ward will be their quarterback, and I'm not like some others where I just think Cam Ward's going to enter the NFL and dominate. I think he will have his struggles. I think he'll have his impressive moments. I think he'll show enough to prove that he can be a franchise quarterback. Let's put it in like Drake May terms from last year. But just like Drake May, I think Cam Ward is going to be fitting into a really bad team. His offense might be a little bit better than what Drake May experienced, but his defense is pretty rough. And overall, the Tennessee Titans don't have great coaching. They don't have a great roster. I mean, you really look at Tennessee, they don't have a single great edge rusher. They let go of Harold Landry and replaced him with Draymond Jones. That's not really impressive to me, right? Their cornerback position, they lost Chidobe Awuzie, and really, they didn't really go on to replace him. I know that he was injured last year. L'Jarius Sneed had a terrible year with the Titans last season, at least according to most of their fans. And I would say that maybe he rebounds, but their secondary is a bit suspect. Safety isn't really impressive. Linebacker is definitely not impressive. Their interior D-line is good, but that's about it, really, on defense. I think they will take a step back from last year's impressive campaign, at least in terms of yardage, but they did give up a fair amount of points. Then you look at the offense, and the O-line might be a tick better because of the improvements due to free agency, right? They signed Zeitler. They signed Moore to a ridiculous contract, but I think he was incredibly overpaid. I like their running backs, but I don't love them. I like Okonkwo, but I don't love him. I like Ridley, but I don't love him. You see kind of a consistency here to the offense. Plus, they don't really have a lot of deep targets at wide receiver. I mean, they don't really have a wide receiver 2 on the roster, so they need to find one in the draft. If they can get Cam Ward dialed in and playing well as a rookie, and maybe even better than I expect, they can find a wide receiver 2 to help out Calvin Ridley and complement the offense, maybe even another tight end, and possibly some options at edge rusher. That's just a lot to accomplish in one singular draft, right? So this is a building block year for the Titans. I don't expect them to be very successful. I don't expect them to be uber competitive, but I will say they're in a weak division, and in a weak division, you have a chance if you can find some magic with your rookie quarterback. It's possible. I just don't really see it with this particular roster and this particular coach, who might be the worst head coach in the NFL. Okay? At number 29, I have the Jacksonville Jags. Speaking of easy divisions, the AFC South is easy. It's weak. It's not good. And Jacksonville could be another one of these teams that maybe surprises me and shocks me, because Trevor Lawrence has shown some upside at times. He has played well in moments of his career, but it's been few and far between, and it's been a lot like a roller coaster, up and down and all around, okay? Liam Cohen is a guy I like from an offensive scheme perspective, and I think he will improve Trevor Lawrence's play and the offense. Lawrence also has to prove to stay healthy. That's another thing, okay? Because currently, I think Nick Mullins is their backup. That's a pretty disgusting situation to be in. But their O-line is not good, right? They have young players at tackle who have proven to be not enough. Too little, if we're talking in specific here, okay? And then also, Brenton Strange, like, he's taken over for Evan Ingram. I kind of like him, but how good is he? I don't know. Wide receiver, they replaced Christian Kirk with De'Ami Brown. I think that's a downgrade, personally. I love Brian Thomas Jr., but he can only do so much, right? This is not a fantastic receiving core. Parker Washington is not really truly a go-to wide receiver in an offense. Like, their running game was terrible last year. Maybe it will improve, but their running backs, Bigsby and ETN, don't desire a lot of confidence, don't inspire a lot of confidence, really. And the defense was horrible last year. Like, they were historically terrible. Even if they add a Mason Graham, I don't know if that's really going to move the dial, right? Especially with his dimensions, okay? And you're looking at Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Josh Hines-Allen. Yeah, there's some pieces, in the front. I like their linebackers, Lloyd and Aluakon, but the secondary's been a huge issue. They signed Jordan Lewis. I don't know how much that moves the dial for me either. Their safeties are still terrible. I just feel like their defense it's got a long way to go. It needs a lot of pieces to improve. It's going to need drastic improvement from its coaching. And I'm not sure that Liam Cohen, just like Kellen Moore, is not a better OC than he is a head coach. He has kind of a weird, awkward, dorky personality. We'll see how that works out. I like him a lot. I do think that inspires some hope for this team, but I just don't see a lot of talent. Like, I think they're actually overrated from a talent standpoint. And that's what really has me driving them down the list here. At number 28, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are extremely difficult to rank because the quarterback situation. Is Joe Flacco the starter for 2025? Like, that is a answer that I did not expect to say in a video in the year 2025. Joe Flacco might be the starter of the Cleveland Browns. When looking at it, it makes a lot of sense because he did take the team to the playoffs 2 years ago, and it's not too dissimilar of a football team, right? Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz as a combination have had some good and some bad. I would say they're a lot better than a majority of the teams from a coaching standpoint than I've already discussed, which elevates the Browns from the bottom of the barrel to at least somewhat interesting and respectable if things go their way, especially at quarterback. Is Kenny Pickett going to be the answer? That's another question. Will it be a rookie? Maybe so. But right now, I just don't have a lot of confidence in quarterback. If Joe Flacco does it again, color me shocked, all right? I like Jerry Jeudy and what he did last year, but to me, he's not a true number one. Travis Hunter will probably be the pick, so that inspires some confidence. I like David Njoku. I like Cedric Tillman. I don't love their running back situation. I think it is one of the worst in the NFL. Their O-line does need to stay healthy, but they're aging a lot, so that is concerning. Defensively, they're pretty darn solid. There's not a lot to complain about here. Their cornerback position is very, very good. They can play man, they can play zone, led by Denzel Ward. Their safeties are sneaky. Their linebackers do need help with the status of JOK. Their defensive line is good. And when you have Myles Garrett, you're pretty well off, right? It's not amazing around Myles Garrett, but it's pretty deep and pretty solid all around. It's not a lot to complain about. So the Cleveland Browns, 28 feels about right. They're not the second worst team in the league like they were last year. They should improve a little bit, but I'm not sure what to think of the quarterback situation. And honestly, like, until they figure that out, I don't know if I can rank them that much higher, even if their roster is still solid. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still solid. At number 27, I have the New York Giants. The Giants move up on my list a little bit, from the offseason to closing into the draft, just because I like what they did in free agency. I am kind of trying to figure out how they're going to actually win, though. Like, with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Shedeur Sanders, whoever the heck is playing quarterback for them, is that enough? I really don't think so at the end of the day. And given that their offensive line is decent, but not anything special, nowhere close. It's probably not even average, right? I love Andrew Thomas, but besides that, everybody else is mid or worse. Jermaine Illuminor is kind of underrated in my opinion. But what has me intrigued is they got to be better at quarterback than last year. They have to be better than Daniel Jones. They have to be better than Tommy DeVito. They have to be better than Drew Lock. Like, it's hard to be worse than what they got at quarterback last year with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and potentially a rookie involved. Like, it's hard to be worse. So they should improve at the most important position. And Brian Daboll is literally coaching for his job. So that also speaks volumes. I like Tyrone Tracy. I love Malik Neighbors. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. And Darius Slayton is a dog. But even Theo Johnson, I like Theo Johnson. I like their pieces on offense. I just don't know if the O-line is good enough to protect a below-average quarterback. And I don't know how that's going to pair up and how they're going to consistently score and move the ball. And with the defense that has improved this offseason with moves like Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland, I'm excited here, especially if they go Abdul Carter in the draft. That would be pretty ridiculous of a front seven. But I just didn't see a lot last year that made me inspired for this year. Like, last year, they really underwhelmed as a pass rush. They really underwhelmed as an overall defense. I wonder if they have the right man running the show there. And I wonder if we're going to overrate them again entering 2025. Maybe the answers to their secondary are enough for them to improve and some of their younger guys entering year 2 and things like that. So there's a lot of questions here, but overall, the bottom line is they have not been very good recently. They haven't been able to figure out quarterback. I still don't know if they have. I truly don't. And the O-line is still not in a place where they can truly protect and uplift a bad quarterback. So at number 27, I have the Giants. They're still the worst team in their division. At number 26, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are, again, tricky, kind of like the Browns, because their roster is solid. Their roster has talent. Their roster is intriguing. But the quarterback position is not. The quarterback position is bad, right? Anthony Richardson, he stinks. I mean, let's just be honest. He can't complete a damn pass. If you can't complete above 50% of your passes, you don't deserve to start in the NFL. I'm not a completion percentage guy, but there comes a time when a floor must be reached. And Anthony Richardson is nowhere. He's in the basement, okay? Then you look at, okay, it's not Anthony Richardson, it's Daniel Jones. Yeah, okay, that answers the question, right? Jonathan Taylor is awesome. I think their receiving core is the most underrated receiving core in football. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, they've got Mitchell, they've got Pierce, right? They need a tight end. Let's see if they go there in the draft. Offensive line, I think, got a tad weaker this offseason, but they're still very solid. Maybe not elite, but very solid. I like Shane Steichen as a play caller. I think he elevates their offense. I don't think he's a dynamic, great head coach, but a good play caller. Defensively, I think they will improve under the tutelage of Big Game Lou. I think that will help. I think Charvarius Ward's addition also will be pretty important. They also improved at safety this offseason. And you look at their front, and it's pretty darn good. Rock solid, led by DeForest Buckner. They also get some key pieces back from injury and things like that. Linebacker's a little suspect. But you look at the Colts, and the roster's there. This could be a playoff team with an admirable quarterback. But Anthony Richardson has proven to be anything but that. That's why they're only at number 26. At number 25, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are at 25 because I like Bryce Young more than Anthony Richardson. And despite their weaknesses from a roster perspective, I was impressed by the improvement of Bryce Young and the improvement of the Panthers last season. I thought they improved drastically down the stretch. And I think, carried momentum into the offseason where they did improve in the offseason on defense. They added a plethora of talent at all 3 levels to improve their depth and their floor of their defense. Names like Tershawn Wharton, right? That's a guy that's going to help them, okay? Patrick Jones, that's a guy that's going to help them. Not household names, but should improve their overall depth of their defense, plus getting Derek Brown back does help. Offensively, they've got one of the best and I think most underrated offensive lines in football. They have a decent receiving core, nothing special. They could definitely improve it in the draft. I love their running back room with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. I think Bryce Young's going to have a good year this year because I like Dave Canales' offense for him. I think his confidence grew mightily last season, and I was really impressed by how he was playing, right? He really proved me wrong last season. So if that continues, this team will be better than bottom of the barrel, okay? And then I think they're going to have a defensive-driven draft, which is going to elevate the rest of their team and make a bottom of the barrel unit, one of the worst of all time last year, maybe perhaps respectable, because I think the coaching is there. I just really felt like their talent was absolutely horrific last year. So at number 25, I have the Panthers. At number 24, the Las Vegas Raiders. I have the Raiders at 24, and this is a lot like pre-draft based, because when you look at their roster is not ready for the season. So if they have a good draft, they could jump like 7 spots, okay? So understand that, Raiders fans. But currently your roster is not in good shape entering the draft, which is concerning. I don't like when teams do not fill needs in free agency, okay? I think they have big needs at defensive tackle, linebacker, potentially safety even, but more so corner for sure. Corner is a drastic, dire straits need for the Raiders. Their corner position is absolutely pathetic. I mean, it's really bad. So they need some corners there. I also think they're not going to be able to be a good defense if they can't cover anybody. Like, that's not a good idea. And then linebacker, Landon Roberts and Devin White are not getting it done. I'm sorry, like, that's not enough for me. So I just think the defense, while I like their front four, and I think they've got solid depth there, Max Crosby's a stud, love getting Malcolm Kuntz back. I think they've got Christian Wilkins now, which is really going to elevate the rest of their defense, their run defense, all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm really excited for Wilkins and Crosby for an entire season, but they just can't cover anybody, so I'm concerned. And then on the other side, the O-line is good. I think it's underrated generally, but I don't think it's fantastic. They do have Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, but they do not have an outside perimeter threat of a wide receiver that makes a difference. And their running back room is really, really bad. So I just don't see how they're effectively running the ball right now, and I don't see how they're effectively changing games with their wide receiver position, despite adding Geno Smith, who's light years better than their quarterback position, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell last year, okay? Geno Smith is a lot better. He improves their professionalism. He improves their ability. He improves their production. And Pete Carroll is a good NFL coach. He's a good football coach. He'll improve the floor of this team, get them inspired, and I think change the culture. Chip Kelly should also be pretty creative offensively. So they have a good coaching staff for the first time in a while, I think. You know, the closest being maybe that John Gruden small season of like 2020, 2021, where they were kind of doing something good. But the Raiders just need to have a good draft because they still have so many needs. That's why I only have them at 24, despite me really enjoying what they're going for and the vibe now with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. I just think it's all vibes. It's not quite enough the roster that I'm looking for here. At number 23, the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Yeah, they actually suck kind of right now. I mean, they're on the ropes. I think that's the best way to describe the Miami Dolphins. I literally cannot say Miami Dolphins without singing it. It's actually like really addictive. I can't do it. If anybody can call whatever number you've got to call to solve this problem of saying Miami Dolphins. See, I can't do it. So with this team, I just would say that their offensive line is bad. Teron Armstead leaving thrusts Patrick Paul into a starting position, which is concerning. Their offensive line, in terms of their tackles, is not a good situation. Jackson's on the other side, I believe. The interior is not good either. I mean, they can't run the ball right up the middle. They can't get 3 yards running the ball right up the middle. It's embarrassing. They have no power. They have no grit. This team is soft as Charmin. Okay, Tyreek Hill, he has too many baby mamas. He's distracted. He's getting older. He's not the same guy. Jalen Waddle, he can waddle his ass out of here. And you look at Jonnu Smith, he's a dog. They've got A-Shane, who's good, but he was not productive because their O-line stinks. They can't open up any holes for this kid. And defensively, their safeties are bad. Their corner depth is terrible. Their D-line is not great. Like, their interior is not great besides Zach Sealer. Yeah, their edge rushers are good, and their linebackers are kind of underrated, and they can get the job done. But man, this roster is a far cry from last offseason or the year before. I mean, they are not the same team. Like, a lot of people will assume the Dolphins will be in the mix for the playoffs. Bro, I think they're falling apart, especially if Tua gets hurt again. At number 22, the Atlanta Falcons are 22. And this is a weird one because I don't love their coaching staff. I think Raheem Morris stinks. I think he's terrible, okay? I do think that Zach Robinson is decent, but what I like about the Falcons is I think they have a good offense, not a great offense. It's good. I can justify that. They've got a good offensive line despite losing Drew Dahlman, right? I'm choosing in this video to uplift the Falcons because they prove me wrong a lot. Like, they just generally do a little bit better than I'm expecting, right? I expect them to win like 6 games. They win 8 or 9. Maybe some of that's the division, right? Some of that's the division. But I feel like the O-line's a big reason for that. They have balance on offense. I feel like Penix is going to be decent this year. So, like, I'm choosing to believe in Penix. I love Bijan. I think Drake London's awesome. I like Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts, I don't know. Will he get traded? Maybe, but I just think that offense gives them a solid floor of a foundation. Defensively, I think they will improve in the draft. Now, of course, I'm not really improving or looking at them from an already installing that they're going to get an edge rusher in the draft. Like, I need to see what they do, because last year they picked a damn quarterback. So we'll see what happens. But, defensively, I look at them and I'm really desperate for them to get an edge rusher, really desperate for a pass rush on this football team. It's bad. Leonard Floyd's not going to solve your issues. And they lost a leader like Grady Jarrett, which is concerning, but their interior D-line is solid enough, led by David Onyemata. Linebackers are extremely underrated. I think they do have one amazing safety in Jesse Bates and one amazing corner in AJ Terrell. And they've got decent quality pieces around them that make it okay. Okay. But I think the Falcons are not that talented. I just feel like they have a good offense. They have a sneaky, opportunistic defense that's bend but don't break. The style that they play is advantageous to win in a range of 7 to 9-ish type of games. I don't think they're going to really fly by everybody this year and really super impress, but I don't think they're a bottom of the barrel team. I've kind of rethought that idea because, like I said, they do tend to outdo my prediction or projection of what their roster is. At number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are at 21. I don't know who their quarterback is, and I'm really not even plugging in Aaron Rodgers in this video, so I've moved them down a little bit, because if Mason Rudolph's their quarterback, yeah, they probably still win like 8 games, 7 games, because Mike Tomlin is a voodoo master, but I can't rank you that high. I mean, I can't rank you as a playoff team. I even if you have DK Metcalf, even if you've improved your defense even with, names that I like Thornhill and Darius Slay, I can't do it. If it's Mason, the Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, are you kidding me? The O-line also is an area where not enough people talk about. The Steelers are just not that good in. Like, they're not terrible, okay? It's been worse in Pittsburgh on the offensive line recently, but it's not good either. So the combination of unknown quarterback and bad offensive line, are not ideal offensive line, young and kind of question marky, that is a question mark for me. And DK Metcalf, George Pickens is awesome. I like Kelvin Austin. I like Pat Freiermuth. I like Jalen Warren. I think they need another running back, maybe a power guy, something like that in the draft. But defensively, I think they're almost set. They could use a nickel corner, maybe a defensive tackle, a youthful guy. I love their linebackers. I like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and their pass rush, and I like Minkah Fitzpatrick and I like Porter, but I just don't respect the quarterback. And I've realized that this team has had a ceiling year in and year out for a number of years now, right? So at number 21, the Steelers. At number 20, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are kind of opposite of the Steelers. Like, they have elite players, but they don't have a lot of depth. They don't have super impressive limited holes, but they have a quarterback that I actually respect. Yes, I respect Dak Prescott. I think he elevates the floor of your team, right? He's a guy that he is going to probably provide 7 to 10 wins for the Cowboys, no matter how bad their roster is, because he's a decent enough quarterback. With a guy like CeeDee Lamb to throw the ball to, not an awful offensive line, and you would assume one more weapon in the draft, whether it be a running back or a wide receiver. I think Schottenheimer, will see what he is as a coach, but it could be a good thing for them. We'll find out. Defensively, they still have a number of good players, led by Micah Parsons. I do really like their safety tandem. I feel like Bland and Diggs at corner is pretty good as well. And then I like the pickup of Dante Fowler. Digizua is one of my favorite underrated players. I still see the talent, kind of in spots across the roster. I just feel like it's not as stacked as it's been. The D-line isn't as deep. The rotation isn't going to be one of the best in football this year like it has been for, most of the last 5 years. The secondary, I don't think is quite as good. They probably could use a nickel corner. They lost Jordan Lewis, right? Their linebackers are extremely young or suspect, right? Their O-line is young or suspect, not the same way we've been regarding their O-line in recent seasons. But with Dak, with CD, with Parsons, with Eberflus running the defense, I see them as like just below an average team, probably mid-ish, competing, but not super great. So at number 20, the Cowboys. At number 19, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, I like their defense. I think that they're going to be a good defense this year. Mike McDonald's going to ensure that. I love the addition of DeMarcus Lawrence if he can stay healthy to complement a guy like Leonard Williams, who had an amazing season last year in this defense, to complement Byron Murphy, to complement what they have going on the edge with Mafe and those guys. Ernest Jones seemed to be a good fit. I like the tandem at corner, Woolen and Witherspoon. I love Love, okay? So the defense, it's going to be probably top 10-ish. But you look at the offense, and I think the offense has a chance to be much worse than people think, because right now, I don't think they can block a soul. Their interior offensive line is terrible. Their tackle position is not awful, especially at left tackle with Cross, but it could be better, honestly. Like, it could be better at right tackle, but the offensive line is going to be in tough condition, which is going to lead Sam Darnold to be in tough condition. Because I've never seen Sam Darnold play well with pressure on him. Like, I've never seen Sam Darnold perform with pressure. Wide receiver-wise, I think Cooper Kupp is kind of washed. He might provide some sparks here and again, but I don't really know. And then you look at MVS, and yeah, he had a good year last year for the Saints, but are we going to count on him in high-leverage moments? So they got JSN. Like, Noah Fant, nothing special. I like Kenneth Walker, but where is he running when the offensive line can't move people off the ball? So they're drastically going to have to improve their offensive line through the draft. If they can do that, and I can look at their offensive line and say, I think Sam will have a chance, and I think Kubiak can run his run game the way that he wants to because this offensive line can execute it. If I can look at the offensive line after the draft and say that, I'll move them up. But right now, that feels like a crippling unit to their football team, along with not overwhelming weapons, to where Seattle could maybe take a step back after further evaluation. At number 18, the Arizona Cardinals. I move the Cardinals above Seattle. I think the Cardinals have more promise. I think they've improved more. I think that adding Sweat, Campbell, Tomlinson to the front seven improves them. I do. Okay? I think the secondary, Garrett Williams is underrated. They've got one of the best safety tandems in football, and I would expect them to spend another high pick on defense, whether it be linebacker or cornerback, okay? So I expect the defense to have more talent and just overall compete better. So they shouldn't be bottom of the barrel defensively. I think Gannon is kind of underrated from a defensive standpoint. I think he has put them in good positions to succeed. It's just he hasn't had the talent. Okay. I think offensively, Petzing is one of the more underrated play callers. I think they have a dynamic running game. Their offensive line is a bit suspect in drop back pass, but I think they do a great job at running the ball. And I like their running backs led by James Conner. Trey McBride's one of the best tight ends in football. I think Marvin Harrison in year 2 should be better. I'd like to see them add a wide receiver. I'm just not sure if they will be able to. Kyler Murray, also, I think just on average is better than Sam Darnold. Like, he probably can do more with less around him, right? Sam was better last year, but that was on a stacked Vikings team with a great play caller. So I look at the Cardinals and I say, hey, Kyler another year removed from ACL, improvement on defense. This is a sneaky football team that could be dangerous in 2025. Don't count them out. So I like the Cardinals. I think they're a little underrated. I have them at 18. At number 17, the Chicago Bears. Well, they're really tough to rank because on one hand, I really love what they've done this offseason, from the coaching improvements and the coaching hires of Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson to the offensive line additions of Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson. I think their offensive line is now one of the better ones in football. I think it's top 10. I think DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Roma Dunze, that's a lot of fun for me. And I look at their defense and I already know it's pretty solid, right? And Dennis Allen should only help that. They've also improved on the defensive line. They have plenty of picks to also add to their depth and maybe get a fresh running back, maybe defensive linemen. They could do a lot of different things here. they have a lot of openings because they don't have a lot of holes, right? They don't have a lot of holes, so they can pick best player available and really thrive that way. So can coaching improve them? Ben Johnson, can he be the guy that sparks Caleb Williams? Because that's the biggest question for me at 17. I didn't see really that much from 2024 that made me convinced that Caleb Williams is the guy I want to count on, the guy that I want to bet on, especially in this division. I just need to see more from Caleb Williams because I'm leaning towards right now, after just one season, that he is kind of a bust more so than he is a superstar generational talent. That's where I'm at. So understand where I'm at. I respect what they've done. I see the improvements. I think they can be really good. But unless Caleb is good, they can't get there. Okay? So at number 17, I have Chicago. At number 16, I have my Patriots. Now, this might seem high for the general NFL fan, but I don't think the general NFL fan understands how much the Patriots have improved this offseason. It's actually an incredible amount. It's actually insane. First of all, they have a borderline top 10 coach in Mike Vrabel. They have a borderline top 10 offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels. Last year, they had a bottom 3 in both categories, all right? And that's undebatable, okay? That is not even a question. They also added a former head coach to the offensive line coach, Doug Marrone, right? They, as a coaching staff, are so much better, so much brighter, so much deeper across the roster of the coaching staff. That's going to improve their talent. That's going to improve their team. Then you're talking about Drake May, who I think is a stud. I thought he showed a lot as a rookie with a terrible football team and an absolutely ridiculously awful coaching staff. So I think Drake May will elevate the offense because he is that good. But then on top of that, Josh McDaniels will help him out. His new receiver, Stephon Diggs, will help him out, who already is looking great in his return to the NFL. And I think he'll be better than people think. And I think New England, they have complementary offensive pieces. Like, they have guys like Antonio Gibson backing up Ramondre Stevenson. They have Austin Hoopers and Hunter Henrys at tight end. They have Kendrick Bournes, and they have Demario Douglases, and guys that can make some plays, right? They needed a Stephon Diggs, and perhaps they even go out in the draft and get another receiver. You know, whether it be in the first or second or third round, they might get another talented guy that can improve this room too. And if they do that, they could also get a left tackle. But the offensive line is the most suspect area of the offense. But I've seen Josh McDaniels take bad offensive lines and make them competitive with the Raiders and the Patriots. I've seen it in both locations. So I think he'll improve the room. I think Marrone will improve the room. I think that their O-line is at least competitive from right tackle through center. Their questions kind of lie at left guard and left tackle. And I think they'll find some competitive pieces in the draft, whether it be Will Campbell or whoever they decide to go with in the first, second, third round, okay? So they should solve a lot of their questions offensively in the draft. And I'm not really projecting that. I'm just kind of understanding what they are right now. They have a baseline of a team right now that doesn't have a lot of holes. Wide receiver and left tackle are the biggest by far. After that, you're getting to things that you want more than you need, like maybe another edge rusher or something like that, right? You look at the defense, and it very well could be elite this year. Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis is one of the best corner combinations in football. Duggar and Peppers at their best is a really awesome safety combo. You know, you look at their linebacker position, that I like Robert Spillane a lot, okay? Milton Williams is an absolute stud. Harold Landry improves their run defense drastically. And then you add that to pieces like Barmore and Keon White and Anthony Jennings, and now we're talking like this is a real defense led by a real coaching staff with a really promising young quarterback who actually has a guy to throw to now. So the Patriots, they could make the playoffs. Like, I very well think that. I am not just saying that as a fan. They realistically have a team that is well-rounded right now and should only improve in the draft. At number 15, the San Francisco 49ers. Believe it or not, the 49ers have more holes than the Patriots. I know that's insane to say, but that's probably true. Like, the 49ers could use a center. They could use a left guard offensively. Then you look at defensively. They could use multiple defensive tackles, a defensive end, a corner. Like, they have needs. That being said, they have Kyle Shanahan, they have Robert Saleh, Brock Purdy ain't bad, and they've got a really good offense. When you look at, okay, they're going to be elite on offense because they have Kyle Shanahan calling plays. They have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, and Ricky Pearsall. That's a lot of talent to deal with, and you've got Trent Williams at left tackle. So no matter what, if they entered the season with this offensive line, they'd still be top 10 in the NFL in yardage, probably points as well. They're going to be very good on offense. They might be top 3, top 5, okay? Brock Purdy can run this system extremely well, all right? And McCaffrey's healthy. And they've got good backup running backs. Isaac Guerrero is good. Then you look at defensively, they've got young talent that I like. Mustafa, right? And Green are 2 of my favorites in the NFL for year 2 players. I think they're really going to develop very nicely. How much can Robert Saleh elevate their defense is a big question. I think he will elevate their defense from what we've seen recently. Because recently they have not been a good defense, and they've had underwhelming results with the talent they've had. And I think in the draft, they're going to address a lot of their defensive line issues. And really, if they can do that, they're set up well to be a playoff team again this year because their schedule is extremely easy and they have an awesome offense and an awesome coach. So I think the 49ers are kind of being slept on because everyone's negative about them right now. But if they can click in the draft and hit on a couple players, that can already increase the floor of the great ceiling that guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey provide, okay? So at number 15, the 49ers. At number 14, the Green Bay Packers. This is kind of interchangeable between the Packers and the Niners, in my opinion. I'm down on the Packers, and it's not because I don't like the Packers. I just kind of feel like they have hit a wall, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get over this wall because they haven't really improved many areas of their team. Like, does Aaron Banks move the needle for me? Not exactly, okay? And I'm uncertain that Jair Alexander will be on this football team. So I don't know if Nate Hobbs moves the needle if Alexander is not there. If Nate Hobbs is now your CB1, that's kind of concerning, even if he plays more games than Alexander typically does. Their defense was kind of a weird problem last year because they improved against the run, but they were terrible against the pass, especially in terms of success rate. Their corner position is not good, and it does need improvement, and their overall coverage needs improvement. Their pass rush was really underwhelming. They have names there, but it has not led to results. Guys like Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Lucas Van Ness, these names on paper should be producing sacks, but it feels like the pressure has just not been there. I like the pieces individually, but I need to see them come together defensively. I think they're a solid defense. I just don't view them as special. Offensively, they have, just in my opinion, a good, well-rounded offense led by an awesome scheme and a great play caller in Matt LaFleur. But they are not special because they don't have a great number 1 wide receiver. They don't have a great number 1 weapon, which is concerning. And Jordan Love is not a quarterback that can make Romeo Doubs Jordy Nelson. You know what I mean? So he's a decent quarterback. He definitely can play, but unless Josh Jacobs is rushing for 100 yards in a game, they're just not putting up that type of offensive production that you would want from the Packers. So I think they're a good but not great team that is stuck. They're stuck in the mud. They need to hit on a draft class because if they do not, they're in trouble, in my opinion. Like, they could be going downward spiral, okay? So at number 14, the Packers. At number 13, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are at 13 because on one hand, their offense is freaking phenomenal, and on the other hand, their defense stinks. That's really as simple as it gets. It's as honest as I can be. Like, Joe Burrow is awesome. Jamar Chase, awesome. T. Higgins, fantastic. I like their tackle position, and I think that their center is good. Their guards are a little suspect, but Chase Brown is not. He's a dog. And Mike Gesicki was a great help for them last year and a great find, and I think he'll be great again. So their skill positions are incredible. I mean, forget about it, right? But the O-line, it's it hasn't really mattered, right? It's kind of like the Niners where they still produce great offensive production no matter how the offensive line looks. So it's not even that concerning despite how concerning it looks on paper. It's defense that's concerning, okay? If they cannot find a complimentary rusher for Trey Hendrickson, they're in trouble. Now, I do think that Slayton will help their run defense, and that is a boost for me. Oren Burks also could be a boost for me at linebacker. I thought he was very good in the playoffs. And they do get some pieces back from injury in the secondary, which should also help. And I'm intrigued by Golden as their new defensive coordinator, but I'm not sure he'll be better than Big Lou. I'm not sure that he's the scapegoat you're looking for. And I'm not sure how much talent they're really going to be able to add in one singular draft to a down bad defense. But if they can just be adequate, improve slightly, be more timely with turnovers, sacks, and big plays, this team's easily a playoff team because they have arguably the most explosive offense in the NFL. At number 12, the Los Angeles Chargers. And I had to wipe my nose there because I feel stuffed up when I talk about the Chargers because I want them to be good so bad, but I have to hold in my feelings for the Chargers to be good because I just don't quite see it yet. I don't quite feel it yet, okay? The offensive line, I like a lot. I think Becton with Slater and Alt, that's dangerous, okay? Bozeman and James, we'll see how they go at center, okay? But that could be a really good line, especially with where they were penetrated in the playoffs right up the middle. So Becton should help there, I think, quite a bit. I like adding Conklin to potentially give them a floor at tight end. Greg Roman loves his plethora of tight end talent, his 2-3 tight end formations. I understand it. Najee Harris is a workhorse back that will be reliable, consistent, and you would think healthy because he has never missed a game in his NFL career and does nothing but rush for 1,000 yards. Ladd McConkey's awesome, and I do think Mike Williams helps a little bit, at least just in third down and red zone situations. Justin Herbert and him have great chemistry, so he's not the same player, but he should help them from a situational standpoint, which is a nice thing to have. I think they need to add another playmaker in the draft, whether it be tight end or wide receiver. If they can do that, I'll be very excited to see how that goes. I'd actually prefer wide receiver, personally. If they can get a wide receiver, if they can get a tight end, I'll be really intrigued to see how much that raises their ability to be explosive and score points on a consistent basis and not have to rely on Justin Herbert just being phenomenal for them to move the ball. Because honestly, it was not good by the end of the year in terms of separation at wide receiver. And then defensively, I think that they're good as a unit, but not extremely talented. Their D-line is in rough condition on the interior, losing Poona Ford. Their edge rush is okay. They did bring back Khalil Mack. Their linebackers, I think, are sneaky good. Their safeties, they might have the best combo in football. Don't sleep on it. Derwin James was amazing last year. And their corners are young, but I like the depth, and I like the players, and I like the development possibilities. So I think the defense, well-schemed, well-coordinated, well put together. They do need to improve their interior D-line and perhaps the depth of their edge position and things like that. But it's mostly about improving the explosiveness, improving the danger of this football team. If they can do that, they could maybe be a top 10 team. At number 11, the Denver Broncos, who I just think have a better overall roster right now than the Chargers, and they were kind of neck and neck last year by the end of the season. The Broncos have an awesome defense. I can make a strong argument they're a top 3 defense entering 2025. They really don't have a lot of holes. Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga really do improve their defense a lot because those were their 2 biggest holes, right? And they complement the rest of their pieces, led by Pat Surtain. And I love Zach Allen and Nick Bonito, right? Those guys are studs, right? I think a lot of people look at this defense and they're just like, yeah, Pat Surtain, who else they got? Those guys should not be slept on. They're also Pro Bowl caliber players. And when you have a guy at every level like that, and maybe even another with Dre Greenlaw, that's when you become a special defense, okay? Then you look at the offensive line, which is one of the best in football. They have Sean Payton and Vance Joseph, one of the best OC-DC combos in football. They've got Cortland Sutton, a plethora of interesting other weapons at wide receiver. Bo Nix, I don't love. I think he could improve in year 2 or he could decline. I'm not exactly sure. I would expect him to get better. So that's why I have them at 11 here. I'm impressed by the Broncos roster. I was impressed by last season. I think development is likely, but also, who knows, right? Maybe they get a little bit more unlucky. It's hard to know, but running back could be a possibility in the draft. Wide receiver could be a possibility in the draft. I think offensive playmaker is a big need. So that will get me excited. That will get me excited for potentially Bo Nix taking that next step. So at number 11, the Broncos, entering the top 10. At number 10, the Houston Texans, who I didn't know what to do with on this list. I didn't know where to put them because I love their team. I love their freaking team. All right. CJ Stroud, I think when he is protected, is a stud. Nico Collins is like the most underappreciated and underrated football player on earth. He is so good at football. Then you look at Dalton Schultz, you look at Christian Kirk, who I think is going to help them, and then you look at Tank Dell coming back, and Joe Mixon's awesome, okay? So their skill positions are really, really fantastic. There's not a lot of issues there. Their defense is the best in the NFL, in my opinion. I love their defense. I think they have the deepest and feistiest and ferocious defensive line and pass rush. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Derek Barnett. I mean, they added Green, I believe, Taylor, I should say. They've got dogs, man. They added Sheldon Rankins back. I mean, the D-line is sick. Their linebackers are deep and awesome. The corners, Stingley and Lassiter, is one of the best combos, if not the best. They added Ronald Darby, right? Their safety position is good. Their defense is the best in the league, in my opinion. They can do everything. They can rush the quarterback. They can cause turnovers. They can play man. They can play zone, right? They can do a lot. Okay. They can blitz. A lot of them are in their prime. So I love their defense. I like their quarterback a lot. I love their skill positions. It's the offensive line. I mean, this is a top 5 team in the league if they can protect, honestly. This is a post-hype sleeper candidate if they can nail the draft in terms of offensive line. They've added some pieces that everybody knows, like Cam Robinson and Trent Brown and things like that, and Lincoln Tomlinson. But are those veterans enough? Are they steady enough, consistent enough, healthy enough? Those are big questions. I think they need a complete haul of offensive linemen. If they can do that and find 2 starters, let's say 2 starters in the draft on the offensive line, this could be a really dangerous team because they can stop you. And if they can protect, they can run the ball and throw the ball. And that is a good team, okay? So at number 10, the Texans, they have an Achilles heel that is so significant that I can't rank them any higher, but their potential with a good draft is through the roof. At number 9 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, unlike the Texans, I don't think they have quite the ceiling of the Texans, but I feel a lot more secure about the Bucs because their offensive line is legitimately exactly the same. Okay, Baker Mayfield, the last 2 years, has been one of the best quarterbacks in football. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and McMillan is one of the best wide receiver rooms in the league. Otton's solid. They have an awesome 1-2 at running back led by Bucky Irving. And defensively, Todd Bowles always does a good job with the run defense. And I think that they're actually kind of underrated entering 2025. If they can add a couple pieces defensively at safety, linebacker, things like that, some young, youthful speed. You look at the defense and Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, Yaya Diaby, Levante David, Antoine Winfield, Jamel Dean, McCollum. These guys are good at football, okay? So I think Bowles needs to step up on his end of the plate. I also would say that the offensive coordinator position is a concern the last 2 years entering the season. Will Baker regress? Questions will remain. But the offensive line has been solid and their weapons are so good and Baker has been so confident that I just don't think it's going to happen. And they are so consistent in terms of owning this division that it's hard for me to discount Tampa Bay at this point. So I like where they're at because they don't really have to do anything in the draft, and they're already better than they were last year because they get Godwin back. They added Hassan Reddick, right? They're healthier. So I think just with the draft, they only get a little bit better. At number 8, the Minnesota Vikings, who you could easily put at number 20, depending on how good J.J. McCarthy is. That's why I thought of that. J.J. McCarthy is going to dictate how far the Vikings go. Because when thinking about the Vikings, they are one of the most loaded teams in the NFL. They have an awesome roster. I mean, truly a complete awesome team. Okay? You look at running back, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Naylor. Okay? Tight end, they have TJ Hawkinson. All right? Offensive line, they brought in their big deficiencies solved. Okay? Kelly and Fries, you would think would help those areas. Darisaw returns to complement O'Neal at right tackle. Sure, they could use one more guard. Fine. Okay? You look at the defense. You've got Hargrave, Phillips, and Allen on the defensive line. Interior, you've got Van Ginkel, Turner, and Grenard at the edge. Continue to go on. Linebacker, okay, they've got Cashman. They've got Pace. Safety, they're still good. Corner, I think they could use one, maybe two guys in the draft, but they actually made some nice savvy signings. They signed Rodgers out of Philadelphia, which I thought was spot on, and they brought back Murphy, right? So this is just a loaded team. They have Kevin O'Connell. They have Brian Flores. If McCarthy messes this up, he's legitimately bad. He's not going to have to do that much, okay? So, and when looking at it, the Vikings were a sick football team when Sam Darnold, nobody thought he would be any good. So if JJ can play to that level and execute the offense, right, they're going to be good on defense. They're tough to beat in their home field. This could be an NFC championship team. They have that much talent. I'm not sure if they're getting the Super Bowl with a rookie essentially, but this team is loaded. So that's why I have them at number 8. Number 7, the Washington Commanders, who are not really loaded, to be honest. But they do have Jaden Daniels. I like Dan Quinn. I love Cliff Kingsbury and his offensive attack. And I do think realistically, offensively, they have improved because they added Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunzel. And the offense was already very dynamic and very difficult to contain last year. And it only on paper got better. Now, that being said, film, year 2 quarterback, sophomore slump, those things exist for a reason. And that is concerning to a certain degree. But McLaurin, Deebo, you've got a plethora of running backs led by Robinson. Zach Ertz returns, right? Do they have that third receiver? We'll find out. Maybe they get one in the draft. But I just think Daniels is really good. And I don't love the defense. This is why they're only 7. The defense is bad. On paper, it's bad. Their pass rush is not good. I mean, it's honestly non-existent. I don't really know who's getting to the quarterback. They lost Dante Fowler, their leading sacker, I believe. They lost Jonathan Allen, arguably their best pressure player in general, at least consistently over the last few years. And I don't know who's getting the quarterback. So they're going to have to draft somebody. Linebacker is good, okay? I think interior D-line from a run D standpoint is fine. It's just pass rush is concerning. Safety is not great. I don't love the signing there. And then they lost Jeremy Chin. You look at the corner position and what's Lattimore right now? I like the addition of Jonathan Jones. I like some of the additions of guys like Dietrich Wise and Eddie Goldman and some depth, but the defense is concerning. I think it's bottom 10 in the NFL. Even with Dan Quinn's tutelage, it's bottom 10. And I could see where that defense could get them in trouble to the point where they're just not able to replicate the Hail Mary victories, the last-second wins. If teams start to figure out Jaden Daniels a little bit, they could miss the playoffs completely. So this is one where I'm like, I respect what they did last year. They got to the NFC Championship. Daniels is damn good, but I'm concerned. So that's why I have them at number 7. At number 6, the Detroit Lions. The Lions are very complete roster-wise. It makes me confident. I believe in their culture. I believe in Jared Goff, okay? So I look at their team, and despite losing Ben Johnson, I think they have so much talent that it's hard for them to not move the ball. You've got one of the best offensive lines in the league. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. Just give him the ball. You have Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamison the Flash Williams, Tim Patrick, right? You've got enough there to put up a top 10 offense regardless of play calling, all right? Jared Goff is good, and he knows this offense, and he's going to be able to execute at a high level, right? Defensively, we'll see what they are without Aaron Glenn. I don't think it's going to be as big of a loss as people think because I don't think he's that great. I'm more concerned about the positional coach losses there on defense and things like that, where that could hurt them, but if they nail the draft here on defense, you get Aiden back, which is going to make your entire defensive line better. You also get McNeil back. I think they low-key have a very good linebacker tandem. Their corners are solid, not fantastic, but I think they're solid enough. DJ Reed replacing Carlton Davis, right? Arnold in year 2. Amik Robertson is feisty. Their safeties are really good. Branch is awesome. Okay, so Detroit doesn't have a lot of holes. They can look at this draft and they can maybe get a guard to start for them, maybe a defensive end, maybe to compete to start for them. Marcus Davenport, they're still hoping for. But you look at Detroit and they just feel like too talented to fail. That's how I feel about them right now. At number 5, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think the Rams are more talented than the Lions, but I have less uncertainty about the coaching, obviously, from the Rams' perspective, and I see improvement being had by their defense to complement a very good offense. And I look at the Rams and Lions, and I would think, maybe if they play, the Rams would win. So I look at Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams, and I say, look out, lights out. The O-line right now is probably one of the more overlooked units in football. I think it's really darn good. I'm not a huge fan of Kyron. I think he could fall off this year, but I don't think you really need to be very good at running back to run the ball in a Sean McVay offense. I really don't think it matters, to be honest. They could use another weapon, but I think guys like Tutu Atwell can get the job done. Defensively, I love their front seven. Their pass rush is really dynamic, young, and hungry. I think they could use linebacker, corner, but I think they're also solid at those spots. I don't think they're totally terrible. It's not backbreaking to me. They just need to improve a little bit. I think guys like Williams and Witherspoon are solid enough. Kitchens, entering year 2. They've got enough there in the secondary. So the Rams are going to be a very good offense as long as Stafford is healthy and ballin' and protected, right? And McVay is a great coach, and their pass rush is going to put a lot of pressure on teams, especially when the Rams are ahead. So at number 5, the Rams. At number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning AFC champions. It's a glad moment on the BLV to not say reigning Super Bowl champions, but the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, will still be a good football team. I think they are still a good football team. I don't think they'll get to the Super Bowl probably, just because it's a Super Bowl hangover year for them, and they do need to improve some things. Offensive line is extremely suspect. Defensive line is also kind of suspect outside of Karlaftis and Chris Jones, okay? Their secondary is still darn good despite losing Justin Reed, but he is a unsung hero for them. Linebacker is one of the best positions in the NFL, in my opinion. Spags and Reed will elevate everybody. They're awesome. They're the best combo of coaches. Mahomes is searching for his game because the last 2 years he has not been the same player, no matter what people tell me. He has not been a top 3 quarterback the last 2 years. So Patrick Mahomes needs to find himself, and he might be able to this year with Travis Kelce there, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice. That is the best combination of receivers that Mahomes has had since Tyreek Hill was there. Okay, they have a lot of running backs to choose from to see who works, led by Pacheco. They added Elijah Mitchell. They have Kareem Hunt. So we'll see. Okay, Kelce might fall off the map. Mahomes might continue to struggle. Their O-line might still be able to not block anybody, and their offense might still struggle. But at the same time, if they can get a little bit of improvement from their offensive line, that will help their running game, and that will also allow them to find these dangerous receivers for Patrick Mahomes to also improve. That will make them a really interesting team in 2025. So the Chiefs, everything kind of points to they're going to regress, they're going to get worse, things like that. But if they can have a good draft, secure some protection for Mahomes, they're going to be in the mix at the end of things. At number 3, the Baltimore Ravens, who I nearly put at 1 and I nearly put at 2. It's very close for my top 3, but I have the Baltimore Ravens at 3 because I don't really think they improved that much, honestly. I like the Chidobe Awuzie signing. The guard thing with losing Makari, we'll see if that really hurts them or not. Ronnie Stanley, getting him back was huge. Right? They have Likely. They have Andrews, who could take a step back this year. They have Derrick Henry. They have Zay Flowers, who didn't even play on the playoffs, and they nearly won. Right? They have Rashad Bateman. They have DeAndre Hopkins. So they have enough targets. They have enough weapons. They have Lamar friggin' Jackson, who's a top 2 quarterback in the league. And defensively, they're really good. Really good. Interior D-line is one of the best and deepest in the league. They've got a stud in Roquan Smith and a stud in Kyle Hamilton and a stud in Marlon Humphrey. And they have a lot of complementary pieces. I think their edge rush could use improvement. Their O-line maybe a little bit. Maybe you could use another like depth corner, depth receiver, things like that. But the Ravens do not need a lot. They're stacked. They're loaded. They had a ton of Pro Bowlers last year. They're one of the best rosters year in and year out. And if Lamar continues to shine the way he has, they're going to be in the Super Bowl mix. At number 2, the Buffalo Bills, who I think have actually improved more than the Ravens, right? I think when you look at adding Joey Bosa, adding Larry Ogunjobi, adding now Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson to help them at corner potentially, guys familiar with their system, adding Forrest at safety, adding Hoyt at defensive line, but already having all the other pieces who you've now extended, right? Bernard, Shakir, like having all the other pieces that they have gone on to extend, but then add to the defense. So the defense is better. There's no doubt about it. Plus they have a 1st and 2 second-round picks. So they're only going to get better from that standpoint as well. And then offensively, their offensive line is the same, chemistry built, right? Their offensive coordinator remains the same. They didn't lose them this offseason. So that, more chemistry, more intel, all that sort of stuff. James Cook's a little weird. I don't know what's going on there, but I assume he'll be back. They've got 2 good tight ends. They've got 4 or 5 playable receivers. Nobody that really stands out. Shakir is the best of the bunch, but we'll see what Coleman does in year 2. Huge question mark there. But the Bills could go corner in the draft, safety in the draft. They could address defensive line. They could address wide receiver. Any of these are possibilities, and I'd be all for all of them. Okay. So, and they have 3 picks in those first 2 rounds. So the Bills this could be their year. It could be their year because the Chiefs got worse. The Ravens kind of stayed the same. The Bills felt like they got better. At number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles, out of respect for them dominating the Super Bowl and the playoffs. And then I don't think they lost enough pieces for me to be too concerned to move them off 1. Yes, they lost Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson. Those are big pieces for their defense. But they were the best defense in the league by far last year. So it takes them down a peg a little bit, but it's not too concerning, right? I still think they have enough at the corner position. And safety is concerning. Linebackers concerning without Nagobi Dean, and they lost Oren Burks, but they could address those in the draft or maybe even free agents in the summer. And then defensive line-wise, I think they already have enough with some of the improvements or some of the additions they've made, like Ojulari, Uche for depth and things like that. Offensive line-wise, they're still studs, with a Becton lost for Steen, which might impact their running game a little bit with Saquon Barkley, but they should still be able to hold up perfectly for pass protection. Jalen Hurts is a good player. I actually expect him to carry over from that Super Bowl into a better season this year than he had last year. And then you look at wide receiver, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. We'll see what happens with Dallas Goedert. So there's a lot of things that could move the dial here with the Eagles in terms of what do they do on defense to improve their secondary and their linebacker position. What do they do on offense? To help Jalen Hurts, and do they trade Dallas Goedert? Because there are things that could make them worse as well. So at number 1, the Eagles remain. Those are my power rankings entering the NFL draft. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button. If you enjoy the deep analysis of the bottom line view, just like this video, subscribe, jabroni. Peace.